Hello, everyone. My name is Ananya. I'm the founder of Uni Discovery. Today, we have another exciting masterclass with one of the most stellar SAT coaches out there, Mr. Tarun Kaushik. Today, we're going to be focused on the quant section of the SAT. Now, as you all would know, the SAT is extremely important in stringing your application together and getting that edge over other applicants when you're applying to an ambitious school or perhaps some of the top schools of the world. So today, please take notes and please make sure you take up all of the tips and strategies that Tarun is going to share with you on scoring a very high percentage in your SAT. So with that, I pass on the floor to Tarun. Please take it over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ananya. Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Tarun Kaushik. I have trained more than 5,000 students from last 13 to 13 and a half years. So I have been training students for all study abroad exams like GMAT, GRE, SAT, and ACT. The agenda of today's session is focusing on the structure of SAT, what are the components of SAT, how you can score better, what are the things which you can take care of while solving the quant section of it. So we'll straight away start with the structure. And before that, we would like to talk about the registration process. So if you want to register yourself for SAT, you simply need to go to the College Board website where it will ask you about your credential. You will fill in the details. And once all the details are filled, it will take you to the payment page where the standard fees is $60. And there is also an international region fee which is $49 for Indian students. So if we talk about the total fees for an Indian applicant for the SAT registration, that will be $109. Now, let's say if somebody has registered for the August SAT and they want to change their registration date or test date, for that you need to pay $30 extra for that. Now, if we talk about the test structure, the SAT is out of 1600 points, which is equally divided into two components. One component is math, the other component is English. So, in either of the two sections, the minimum score that you get is 200 and the maximum that you get is 800. So if we talk about the total score out of 1600 points, the minimum score is 400 and the maximum score is 1600. Now we'll also talk about for a minute what are the changes in this new SAT with respect to the older one, which was the pen paper based test SAT. So in the older version of SAT, the paper was more of a linear sort of a thing where the number of questions are fixed and the level of difficulty was linear for each and every student. While in this digital mode of SAT, the paper is adaptive in nature. And by adaptivity, we mean that if you are performing well in the first module of maths, the level of difficulty of the questions in the upcoming module of maths will be slightly higher in comparison of the previous one. The same thing works with the English or the verbal section as well. If we talk about the duration of the test, so that is roughly 2 hours 14 minutes, where the entire structure is divided into four different modules, where the reading and the writing, which is the part of the verbal or English section, that has 27 questions per module. So in total, in English part, there will be 54 questions which you have to complete in 64 minutes. So one module, 27 questions, and the time limit for each module will be 32 minutes. Similarly, if we talk about the math section, that will have 22 questions per module, and in totality, there will be 44 questions which you have to do in 70 minutes. So if we talk about the average time per question, that is slightly greater in the maths part in comparison of English. If we talk about the total number of questions that you'll be going to see in your SAT, those are 98. And the total duration of the test is 134 minutes, or you can say 1 hour 14 minutes. So as we discussed that the paper is adaptive in nature. So the first module, either you start with English or you start with maths, there will be a mixed variety of questions in the first module. Some of the questions will be easy, some will be medium, and some will be difficult questions. on the basis of your performance in the module 1 of either math or English, the level of difficulty for the questions in the upcoming module will change. So, for example, if we take two people who are taking the SAT at the same time, the first person did maximum number of questions correct in the first module. Now, the level of difficulty of the questions in the second module for that person will be a lot harder than the previous one, and vice versa. So if you want to get a good score in your maths or English part, you have to make sure that you are performing well in the module number 1 so that you get difficult questions in module 2, which will have more weightage, and at the end of it, you will be able to get a better score. Now, if we talk about the question types, in verbal, all the questions are the multiple choice questions. Like one question is there, followed by four answer choices, out of which you have to choose one correct answer. Where in the math section, there are basically two kind of questions. One is the multiple choice questions, where four answer choices will be written like A, B, C, D. And the second one will be the gridden questions, where you simply need to type your answer. For example, after solving the equation, if you get the value of x as 3 over 5, there will be a space in the grid where you can just write down 3 slash 5. Or you can also write it down like 0.6. Depending on how do you want to write down the answer, that's how you'll fill in the answer or the values in the grid questions. Now, as we know that there is no negative marking in the test, so irrespective of the fact whether you know the answer for the question or not, I would always suggest that mark answer for each and every question. Do not leave any question unanswered or blank. I hope this structure and the question type is clear to everyone. Now, moving on, let's talk about the concepts or the parts in which the entire math section is divided. So the entire math section is basically divided into these four major categories. Advanced math, that will have around 13 to 15 questions. Then algebra, 13 to 15 questions. Problem solving and data analysis, where the question can be in forms of a chart or a pie graph, that has around 5 to 7 questions. And then the concept of geometry and trigonometry, which talks about lines, angles, area of figures, solid geometry, the formula of sine theta, cos theta, etc., etc. If you talk about the major component, then you will see that the questions will be related to your linear equations. That can be linear equations with one or two variables. Further, it can also be given in the form of the system of equations. Again, the normal system of equations or system of equations combined with the concept of coordinate geometry. There will be questions which are based on the concept of functions, the linear function, the quadratic function, as well as the exponential function as well. There will be some questions which are based on rates, your the concept of ratio proportion, percentages, and some will be based on the concept of scatter plot. So we'll be discussing each and everything in detail, like what all topics are tested, how many questions can be framed, what are the different question types which are tested in all these specific topics. So now in the verbal section, we know that the questions are based on reading and writing section. It will contain either the short passages, or in short passages there will be single passage or the combination of two passages. But all the answers in the verbal section will all be the multiple choice question. I hope this part is clear to everyone. Moving on to the next part. Now, with the help of some questions, we'll try and see that how you can arrive at the trap answer and what should be the correct answer for the questions that you are seeing in your SAT. Now let's look at the first question, and if we read it, it says that A is greater than 4 and B is greater than 5, then what is the minimum integral value of A plus B? Those who don't know the meaning of integral, let me simplify it. That means the sum has to be an integer value, means a number without decimal. So I want every one of you to try this question, and then we'll discuss your way of solving this question as well as the SAT way of solving this question. Now, what I have seen in the last 1 decade, the maximum number of students are doing this. So this is the students' approach for solving this question, which I have seen in so many classes. If A is greater than 4, let's take A as 5. If B is greater than 5, let's take B as 6. Now I need to figure out the minimum integer sum of A and B. So we do it like 5 plus 6, which is 11. And we fill this answer 11 into this grid space, which is provided over there. And we assume that this is the correct answer. See, there are two things in your SAT which you need to understand, that in the grid-in questions, you don't have the liberty to check whether your answer is correct or not. Second, in the problem solving questions, they'll also give you the options which you got as your answer, but by the end of it, it is not the correct answer. So majority of the students, they agree that the answer has to be 11, but let me tell you, this 11 is the trap answer. And the trap answer means the answer which is given by majority of the students, and that is one of the most obvious answer which anybody will give. Now let's try and understand why this 11 is not the correct answer. So if we read the question one more time, it says that the sum of A and B must be an integer. But there is nothing specified in the question related to A and B, whether they are integers or not. So the point of the question is, do not assume anything until unless it is clearly specified in the question stem. So I know that A is greater than 4, B is greater than 5. If we add both the equations, I'll get A plus B is greater than 4 plus 5. So that gives me that A plus B is more than 9. So I need to look for the minimum integral value of A plus B. So now I know that the value of A plus B has to be greater than 9, and I need to look for the minimum value. So that means we need to write a number which is just more than 9. And that value will be 10. So the point is, the sum can be an integer without individual numbers being integers. For example, if somebody wants to plug the numbers, like A is greater than 4, the person can take A as 4.5. B is greater than 5, the same person can take B as 5.5. If you add them up, you can get the sum as 10. So that's another way of finding out the answer as 10, where it shows that the sum can be integer without being A and B as individually integers. So the point that we talked about is, do not assume anything while you are solving a question. So that will be tested n number of times while, let's say, if you're talking about a question which is written in geometry. So if this is the question, it says this is 3, this is 4, you need to find out the value of AC. Now, the moment we see a diagram like this, we start writing down the Pythagoras theorem. That is, AC square is equal to AB square plus BC square, which is 9 plus 16, that is 25. and we straight away just write down the answer for the AC is 5. Again, this is not correct. Why? Because we have assumed that this is a right angle triangle, and then we applied the Pythagoras theorem. But there was nothing mentioned in the question whether it is a right angle triangle or not. So even if you are solving the questions which are related to geometry, do not fall into the trap of the looks of the figure. If any information is necessary, either you will be given the facts to prove that information, or it will be given in the question itself. Now, I hope the meaning of not assuming anything in SAT is clear with the help of this question as well as the help of with this example. Now, moving on to the next question. I want every one of you to read the question once, and then we'll discuss the student's approach as well as the trap answer. And then at the end of it, we'll also discuss the correct answer for this question. So let me read the question for you. It says the sum of two integers x and y is 10, and I need to figure out the greatest possible product of x and y. So let's try and see how majority of the students approach this question. They write one column for x, one for y, and another column for the product of x and y. Now we know that the sum of x and y is 10. So they start writing down the possibilities of x and y. Like it could be the combination of 5 and 5, combination of 6 and 4, 7, 3, 8, 2, 9, and 1. Now let's figure out the product. So this is 25, 24, 21, 16, and 9. And I know I need to figure out the greatest possible product, and we come up with the answer as A, which is 25. Again, we see that 25 is my answer, and that is one of the four answer choices. We will not even think about the other possibility for the correct answer. But again, this 25 is not the correct answer, that is trap answer. And as I told you in the previous question, the trap answer means which is one of the most obvious answer given by a majority of the students. That is why in SAT they design the answer choices in such a way that even if you get the correct answer which matches with your options, then you straight away move on to the next one without thinking twice. Now let's try and see why this 25 is the wrong answer, not the correct answer. It's always better to write down the stuff. It says that x plus y equals 10. But the moment I see such a simple question, I do not focus on the English which is written in the question. So it says that x and y are distinct. So this word distinct means they have to be different. Means x cannot be equal to y. So if we go back to the previous slide and we see the possibilities, now I can see that I cannot consider the possibility of 5 and 5. So we need to eliminate the possibility of x equal to 5 and y equal to 5. Now, after eliminating this possibility out of the remaining products of x and y, the maximum possible value is 24. So ideally, the correct answer is B, not A. So the point of the question is you need to focus on the words which are written in the question. So there are few trigger words which will be tested in your SAT. So the moment I say the words like distinct, I should always underline this and write down the piece of information. If it says they are odd, they are even, they are negative, they are positive, they are prime. So always write down this information while you are solving the question so that you do not do the errors like this. Like we did apply the logic correctly, but despite of knowing the maths but not reading the English in the question properly, we arrived at the wrong answer in the previous slide, which was 25. So reading is also equally important in the maths part of the questions which are related to numbers, because sometimes what happens, the moment we see a simple question, we trying to do it in less than 30 seconds. So as we know that on an average, the time per question is 1.6 minutes. So try to do a question in a minute, but never ever try to attempt a question in less than 30 seconds. If you are doing that, that means there are few important factors or the traps which are hidden in the language and you are not focusing on those. I hope this question is clear to everyone. Moving on to the next question. So let's try and read the question quickly. It says x is a set of all non-negative even integers less than 12. Then how many elements are there inside x? So means I need to figure out how many integer values less than 12 are there. That's the basic or the simplest meaning of the question. He has made it slightly complicated by introducing a word set, but that does not mean anything. The only thing which you need to do is figure out the non-negative even integers less than 12. Again, the most common approach, or the I can say the student's response for this question is I need to focus on the values which are less than 12. Let's write them down backwards. I cannot include 12. So the first element looking backward will be 10, then 8, then 6, then 4, then 2. So if I start counting them, I can see there are 5 elements in the set. And again, I come up with the option A as my answer. But as I told you, now we tried to do this question within 10 seconds or 20 seconds. And as we discussed, anything which is marked in less than 30 seconds will have a higher probability of being a trap answer. So again, A is a trap answer means A is not correct. Now let's try and understand why A is not the correct answer. I have seen in my classes which there are few students who are saying why A is not the correct answer. We have counted all the elements. Are you saying that I have to count 12? No. The only thing which I need to focus is the English again, which is written in the question. And if I focus on this word, which says non-negative. So everybody is aware about the number line. So let's see. This is my number line at the center of which we have 0. And I know that 0 is neither positive nor negative. After 0, on the right hand side, things are positive. Before 0, on the left hand side, things are negative. But at 0, things are neither positive nor negative. So now let's say if somebody makes a statement that if x is non-negative, so I'll focus on this word non-negative, means it cannot be negative. So the common assumption that we come up with is if it is not negative, means it has to be positive. But let's try and understand what should be the correct answer. So if it is not negative, means I'll simply erase the negative part of the number line. So after erasing the negative part of the number line, I can see that I'm still left with a 0 and a positive. So the correct answer has to be the non-negative means it is 0 or positive means x must be greater than or equal to 0. Similarly, if somebody makes a statement that y is non-positive, So again, I'll go back to my number line. Non-positive means erase the positive part of the number line and see what else am I left with? 0 and negative. So non-positive means it has to be 0 or negative. Means y should be less than equal to 0. So what did I see over here? These two words which were hidden in the question, non-negative and non-positive. Focus on these kind of words. Non-negative does not mean it has to be positive. We have seen the reason why. And similarly, we have also seen the reason, the meaning of non-positive means it can be 0 or less than 0. Now, we know that on the number line, if we talk about integers, every alternate integer is odd or even. Let's say if 2 is odd, 2 is even, then the next number 3 is odd. Then the next number is even. Then the next number is odd. So similarly, if we move before 2, I'll get 1. So even number, then odd. Then on the left hand side again odd. So if we move on to 0, so that means this 0 has to be an even number. So even, odd. So every alternate integer on the number line is even and then odd, even and then odd, or vice versa. If it is starting with odd, the next number has to be even. So the point in this question is that remember the properties of 0, that 0 is neither positive nor negative, but it is even. Now, if we go back to the question and see the language written in the question, it says that non-negative. So the moment I see the word non-negative, that means I have to think about 0. And the moment I see that even is also written along with that, that gives me 100% confirmation that 0 has to be the part of the set. So that means the correct elements in set X should be 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So they are basically 6 elements rather than 5. I hope the concept of non-negative, non-positive properties of zeros are clear to everyone. If you have any doubt, you can just ask. So quick recap, the question number 1 is based on not assuming anything. Question number 2 was based on reading the English written in the question properly. Question number 3 was based on knowing the meaning of the words non-negative, non-positive, as well as remembering the properties of 0. Now, moving on to the next one. So let's read it quickly. Then again, we'll talk about both the approaches. Students' approach, which is the response given by a maximum number of students, and then we'll see whether those are the wrong answers or the right answers. So anything which is written between these two parallel bars, this is known as modulus or absolute value. Like if something is written as modulus 5, that will be 5. If it is written as negative 5, that will also be 5. So this parallel bar is known as the modulus. Means if we are taking the output of this, that will denote the magnitude and we don't have to focus on the sign. Like if it is minus 5, the value will be 5. If it is 5, that will also be 5. So if we read the question, it says x into mod y is not a positive number. So I'll just write it down. X into mod y is not positive. So if it is not positive, means it can be 0 or negative. That means x into mod y is 0 or x into mod y is negative. And now we know that we have learned in the school that the modulus of any number is always positive. So in this case, the only possibility could be x equal to 0. This modulus y cannot be negative. That's why x has to be negative. So the possibilities that I come up with is x equal to 0 or x equal to negative, and then we mark the answer as 1 and 2 happily, and then we move on to the next question. And again, I must tell you, this is the trap answer. Why? Let's try and understand the statement. If I say like x square, so the moment we see x square, which we have learned in the school system, x square means it has to be positive. If we say under root x, means it has to be positive. If we say modulus x, it has to be positive. But the correct way of saying is these things cannot be negative. So if something is not negative, which we have learned in the previous questions, that if it is not negative means it has to be greater than equal to 0. So if something is written as x square or under root x or modulus x, we will not say that this will be positive. We will say that these three things are non-negative, means they can be 0 or greater. So now if we write down the first case, this one, x into modulus y is equal to 0. X into modulus of y is equal to 0. Now we know with the basic properties that if the product of two numbers is 0, means either x is 0 or y is 0 or both of them are 0, which basically means that at least one of the numbers must be 0. Now, as soon as I fix the value of a y as 0, now this equation becomes x times modulus of 0 is equal to 0. And I know that if I multiply anything with 0, let's say if I take x is equal to 10, 10 into 0 is 0. If somebody takes x as negative 20, negative 20 into 0 is 0. Third person took x equal to 0. Again, the product is 0. If we go back to the question, he's asking which of the following could be true about x. So could be true means you need to figure out every possibility which might be available on the number line for the variable x. Now we have seen that as soon as I fix the value of a y as 0, my entire equation becomes independent from the values of x. So now I can say that x can be a positive number, it can be a negative number, it can be 0 as well. So the answer has to be D, which is all 1, 2, and 3. So the takeaway of this question is, or I can say the point of the question is, do not say that if it is x square, so that is always positive. If it is under root x, then it is positive. The correct way of saying will be if I see x square, under root x, or modulus x, they all will be non-negative, means they can also be 0. So I hope the point of the question and the correct answer is clear to everyone. And you also understood why C is the trap answer, not the correct answer. Now, there is one more question, which is one of my favorite questions in SAT, and that is a simple question in which 90 to 95% of the students have given me the wrong answer for this question. So the question is x upon x plus 1 plus 8 upon x minus 2 is equal to 3 upon x plus 1 times x minus 2. This is one of the questions that will be tested in SAT. So I can say this is SAT's favorite question. And the question is simply solve for x. And the options which are given, option A is negative 1 comma negative 5. Option B is negative 5. Option C is 2 and 3. And option D is there is no real solution. Now again, let's try and see how majority of the students approach this question. And then we'll see that what is the point of the question. So if I want to compare anything, first of all, I have to make the denominator common. To compare the left hand side as well as the right hand side. X plus 1 times x minus 2. This is again x plus 1 times x plus 2. So this is x times x minus 2 plus 8 times x plus 1, and that is equal to 3. Now I can compare the numerators that give me x square minus 2x plus 8x plus 8 equals 3. If I rearrange it, I get x square plus 6x plus 5 equals 0. So now I know that I need to factorize 5 such that the sum of those factors becomes 6. So that can be written as, if I break it down in 1 and 5, x squared plus 5x plus x plus 5 equals 0. I can take out x common, plus 5, 1 common, x plus 5 equals 0, which means x plus 1 times x plus 5 equals 0. That means either x is equal to minus 1 or x is equal to negative 5. Most of the students, they do it this way, and which is 80% correct, and they come up with the answer as A. But again, let's see why this A is not the correct answer. There is nothing seems to be wrong in this approach because I have made the denominator common, I have compared the numerator correctly, I have done the factorization of the quadratic equation properly, I got the roots as -1 and -5. Why this person is saying that A is not the correct answer? Now let's try and understand the point of the question. So the point is, if we have, let's say, A upon 0. So when something is divided by 0, the result becomes undefined. So the point is, whenever you are solving an equation which contain the variable component in the denominator, solving it and getting the values is step number 1. But at the same time, you have to make sure that you need to plug those values back to the original equation. If any value out of the given solutions make my denominator 0, means that will result into an undefined expression. So if we follow the rule and if we plug x equal to -1 into original equation, then we see that the denominator becomes 0, which results into an undefined expression. So I know that any value or the solution which is making my expression undefined, I cannot consider that value as the part of my valid solution set. So there were two values, -1 and -5. As soon as I plugged x equal to -1, my denominator of the equation on the left hand side becomes 0, as well as on the right hand side it becomes 0. So what do I need to do? I need to discard x equal to -1 from the valid solution set. So hence, after the eliminating it, we get only one valid solution or the value of x, that is x equal to -5 only. And if we go back to the question, I can say that that value is written in option number B. So the point of the question is, whenever you have a variable in the denominator of an algebraic equation, Step number one is solving that, which we did earlier. But do not forget the step number two, which is plugging in these values back to the original equation to make sure that they don't make the equation undefined. If any of the solutions do that, you have to immediately discard that from the valid solution category. So now, with the help of all these questions, you must have understood that what are the errors which majority of the students are making in SAT and how you can avoid them. Now, let's talk about the classes which are conducted. So now we conduct both individual as well as the group classes. So group classes have fixed schedule where each session will be of 2 hours. In individual classes, the frequency of the classes, the timings for the session is totally dependent on the coordination between the tutor and the student. As far as the content is concerned, you'll be getting handwritten class notes of 280 pages that covers the entire theoretical concept, shortcuts, and techniques that SAT will test you on. So, our primary purpose is to see the application of those concepts rather than wasting time in writing down the theory. Whatever I teach during the session, 90 to 95% of that stuff, I have written it down in my class notes so that whenever you want to revise any specific topic, just go to the class notes and do it. That contains all the strategies or the shortcuts which are required to get a good score, that too is by saving a lot of time. If we talk about the practice assignments, there are two books which are divided into 4 parts, and that contains the question bank of more than 3,000 or 3,500 questions. And the questions are also divided in the increasing order of difficulty. As we know that now the paper has become adaptive, so if we do the simple questions right, obviously the next pool of questions will be slightly difficult than the previous one. So keeping that factor in mind, these assignments are given in the increasing order of difficulty. So we discuss a topic during the session, we do one worksheet in the class, and then there are 3 to 4 worksheets based on that topic which you need to do as in homework assignment. Once you are done with all the questions related to that specific topic assigned in the worksheets, then in the next class, before moving on to the next topic, we always keep a doubt clearing session in which all the doubts related to the previous topic or assignments will be discussed. If we talk about the strength for a batch or a group class, generally we keep 6 to 8 students, but we do not exceed the batch strength ever by more than 10 students. If you have any doubt either related to the prep strategies or the content or the things which are related to how many students will be there in a batch, how can I decide that do I need to take the group classes or do I need to take the individual classes, all those queries can be answered whenever you are free to talk to us. Ananya, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tarun, for sharing those insights. While we've covered most of the ground, I think just as next steps, if you have any questions, you'll have all of the details given to you, which is the WhatsApp group, which you can join. It's an invite-only WhatsApp group, as well as our email ID and contact information. So you can contact us for those personalized or group classes. And for any questions that you might have over and above the webinar that took place today. So we'd be happy to maybe prepare an FAQ and take those questions up together as well. Do remember that this is a very important part of your application. So the sooner you get started, the more time you have to do the best application, prepare the best application for studies abroad. With that, it brings us to the end of the masterclass. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. And thank you, Tarun, for taking this up. Thank you.
You're welcome.